Good morning, Facebook, YouTube. Welcome back once again, hanging with Dr. Cooper. I got my good friend, the good Dr. Dave, who decided to come back once again. We didn't turn him off too bad last time, so he's back again for a special Men's Health Juneteenth Father's Day weekend Men's Health Heart Disease discussion. Welcome back, Dr. Dave.
Great to be with you, Coop, as always. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy Father's Day to you too, man.
Thank you, sir.
Got two young girls, man. I hope they're watching and very proud of their father this weekend. I'm sitting here on my deck, Facebook. I am got my Macintosh T-shirt on this weekend. We're celebrating. I have to go into this because I'm gonna get in trouble because inside that door that you all can't see is my wife and my mother-in-law. And I think three of my aunties in there, all of her sisters are here. And we're celebrating the life and legacy of Sydney and Mary McIntosh, my wife's grandparents. They're having a little family reunion here. And I'm sitting out here on the deck this morning and talking with the good Dr. Dave. And, of course, I'm grilling. All of you all who know me, I'm grilling. And it's all veggies on that grill over there. Okay?
All veggies.
All veggies. And I just happen to season it with a little bit of pork juice.
Love it. Love it.
I just happen to.
Wait, he's got a green egg full of veggies. We buy that, man. Listen, I got a bridge I can sell you too. How about that?
I love it. So we are celebrating the McIntosh family. They are here and we are having a great time. And I'm not on call. There's my mother-in-law checking in already. Y'all come on and make a cameo a little bit later before we get off the air. Y'all come on out here on the deck. Y'all can be my live studio audience if you want to.
Love it.
But out here on the deck. But Dave, man, well, thank you for coming back, man.
Yeah.
Let me tell you all something. You ought to understand how privileged we are to have Dave here. Dave is a cardiologist, my cardiologist, a colleague, friend. And also is a contributor to HLN, I think CNN, Steve Harvey Show, a number of media outlets, has his own website, DaveMontgomeryMD.com. I put all of that into the chat. I'm learning this whole podcasting and vcasting thing that we're doing. So you all hook up with Dave. I'm a heart surgeon, and I think I'm a cardiologist that operates. But let me tell you something.
Yeah.
This guy here knows the data. And in fact, we had to cut our conversation short before we came on because what he was discussing, I wanted you all to hear. So, Dave, here we are, man. We're talking. This is Men's Health Month, man. Give me your perspective, man, on where we are. Y'all know Dave. He's from Chicago, Northwest, and all of that. You can go back and look at the old podcast, Dave, because we got so much to discuss.
Yeah, let's get into it.
Where we are with this men's health thing, man. I am really very much so this month. I'm doing this really every Saturday and Sunday except for tomorrow because it is Father's Day. Where are we as men, man? How do we, particularly African-American minority men, older men, regardless of your race, we're in bad shape, man. So tell us your perspective on where we are as men in general in terms of health.
Yeah, I think about this every single day because, roughly 40% of my patients are men, more of my patients are women because they go to the doctors more, okay? And I will tell you, if we keep pushing this idea that men in health is downtrodden and we're just in bad shape. I mean, who's coming to the table to have that conversation?
Yeah,
nobody.
That's a good point.
But it's important for us to try to put it in perspective. I think if you start a book in the middle of the story, you can make whatever kind of conclusion you want. If you don't go to the beginning of that story, you miss why the middle of the book is the way the middle of the book is. And here's what I think is happening. If you remember some of the times where we were frequently going to a physician, because part of the reason is we don't go. But think about the last time when men with an X and a Y chromosome went to the doctor. It was for your sports physical or for your school physical. There are many men listening today that still have not gone to a physician in literally years. Okay? Mm-hmm. And the last time they can remember was that time. Now think about the scenario. First of all, you didn't have any say of when you were going to the doctor. Your mama took you to the doctor, okay? You didn't have any say of what was going to happen to you when you got to the doctor, right? You don't want a shot? Okay, you want to cry? Cry. Fine. As soon as you get done crying, you're getting this shot. It's your body. I still get to tell you what to do with your body, right? There was, all of us went through the testicular exam. Guess what? That's not fun, and you don't have any agency. You don't get to say that right now, in my current state, I do not want somebody to do that exam. Turn your head and cough. That's it. Now, this is getting deep into it, but if you think about it, when somebody takes you, you have no agency, no authority, no self-reliance. I don't care if you're a man or a woman. Nobody wants to engage in that kind of enterprise. Like, what are you talking about? So our last interaction with physicians was one where, by definition, you're taking away my agency. And if you take away my agency, put the Y chromosome in there and you got a major problem. There are not too many men who want to just give that up. So if we have not had a conversation about the fact that the old school way of practicing, right, what we used to call, Coop, you and I used to call this paternalistic medicine, meaning, now we don't say paternalistic anymore because, there are more women in medical school than men now. But parental medicine, right? Like when you go to the doctor, it's like your parent. No matter what they say, you've got to do it. And many academic institutions right now, medical institutions, are teaching away from that, but not everybody. So it's still the academy's problem, right? We still have a problem that we're not training physicians to look at the enterprise in a very different way. My relationship is defined out at the outset, and you know this, Coop. I tell my patients, men and women, when you walk in the door, you hired me, right? I am your advisor. It's not the other way around. You turn around, you hire me, and then I then become the boss. That's not it. So once you redefine the relationship and make sure a man knows what's going to happen, listen, I'm going to give you the best advice I have. It is up to you at the executive level to make the decision. You can take my advisement or not. Then I think you can have a different conversation. But until you recognize that that's probably what's happening, or that somebody was mistreated, or they saw somebody that was mistreated, until you really get into that and you solve it, you're going to still have men's statistics in medicine be much worse than women's statistics. I think that's where you have to start.
Dave, let me ask you this though. I totally agree with that. But that scenario has still created problems. So how do we break through that? You're the partner. You want to be the physician partner. Okay, but the fact of the matter is, it's hard to get a man to come in and have that conversation. I have our good buddy Walter Faulkner talking about erectile dysfunction, and the views on that now is out off the chain.
Yeah.
Because that is something that it strikes the emotional chord. It strikes the physical chord. It strikes, with our psyche in terms of our manhood and all these other things.
Yeah.
So that whole paternalistic, parental guided entree, if you will, into our healthcare. But now that has existed on into our, fourth, fifth, now sixth decade, and we don't go to the doctor as you and I see them until,
right. When's enough? Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you that, all of those things, all the misgivings that men hold, because not every man has this, by the way. Right.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, 40% of my guys my patients are men. And it's about the perspective that you have about it. When you get something like, hey, you can't perform sexually, that'll get you to go see the doctor. And very many times, to your point, in otherwise healthy men, erectile dysfunction is a form of heart disease or vascular disease until proven otherwise, right? That is a blood vessel process. If it's dysfunctional, then it is a blood pressure problem until proven otherwise. So we get to see a lot of men that way, and then we get to reframe the conversation right there. So then I have a patient for life, right? And it's good for me because I'm a preventive cardiologist. I think the way that we approach this has got to be and I think this about medicine in general. I think we've got to market the relationship and healthcare, the landscape very differently than we've done. We have a public relations problem in general in medicine, but we certainly have a public relations problem when it comes to men, and there is not enough focus and effort just sort of about that. I mean, there are people who are listening right now that are like marketing mavens. they know how to solve that problem right away. But nobody's calling them and saying, can you help us solve the problem of the interaction of men with the healthcare landscape?
Right. Right.
Conversation.
Let me ask you this, Dave. So I'm glad you said that, because it really opened the discussion with this, because one of the things that I think, certainly in heart disease, we have a messaging problem. I mean, we need to get away from this heart disease #1 killer.
Yeah.
You know, I know you're a preventive cardiologist, but here's one thing I know: you ain't gonna prevent me ultimately from dying.
Right. Right.
What you are going to prevent me from doing is living a disabled life.
That's right.
You can definitely do that. And I think if we change that conversation, and I want to go back to something that I read here that I thought was really, really very poignant, but simply brilliant. But the article was talking, I think it was Consumer Reports. It was talking about just this very issue about messaging.
Yeah.
And because now the younger generation, you know, my son, 21 years old, healthy as a rock, you know, tall, stature, just you know, Adonis. You know,
Yeah,
he is what you would.
Well, he
look
came
at
from
as,
you, so you know he's going to be Adonis.
Of course, you know. But I don't want him to end up sitting here like a roly-poly like his daddy right now. You know what I'm saying? At 53. So, but my point is that the article was making is starting to reframe this discussion in terms of life cycles. Okay, you're 20 to 30, and now here's one thing I did just as an aside to that, and you and I know this data to be very, very true. Is young African-American men in particular, and young men in particular, who go for years with unrecognized high blood pressure.
Yes.
You know, I mean, and literally, and then they end up in their 30s, you know,
with heart failure.
Kidney failure.
Yeah, and kidney failure. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Dave, talk to us a little bit about, do you agree with that we should be, but maybe that's one option, is if we can start capturing, although they don't have, you know, they come and say, I'm going to see a cardiologist, I don't have a heart problem. No. But what we're trying to do is, particularly when you enter in this and you need treatment for hypertension, well, guess where hypertension is going to lead? It's going to lead to heart problems as the end result, or a stroke, and you know, all within the same realm. So I really kind of think there's something to this whole thinking about our health in terms of where we are in the life cycle: 20 to 30s, 30 to 40s, 40 to 50, 50 to 60s. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's a really good thing to do to sort of put it in those categories. And to your point, it has to start when we were 21, Coop. We, like your son, we simply felt invincible. I'm playing sports
Absolutely.
at the highest level. Look at my body. Listen, I can lose weight in a weekend. I can gain weight in 2 weekends. You know, I couldn't gain weight. I couldn't gain weight to save my life. But which is changed quite significantly after age 40. So here we are. But you know, the point is that this idea that we have this invincibility is a concept of youth. Tearing through that is easier for women than it has been for men. And here's what I just want to say to everybody across the life course. If you will answer the question, are you perfect? Is your body perfect? And the answer is no, then you can just start right there. There's nobody that has a perfect body. I don't care how healthy you are. And incidentally, health is not a matter of a diagnosis or not a diagnosis, right? Health is not defined by not having something wrong with your body. Find one human being on the planet that has every single function, millions and millions of functions, completely normal. And I think we have to clone that person so we can, you know, right? No, it doesn't exist, right? I think Beyonce is perfect, right? My wife's not watching. I think Beyonce is perfect.
Boy, you better watch your mouth, Dave. Don't get me. I'm not going down that rabbit hole.
Yeah, no. But you get what I'm saying. Like, you know, nobody you can look at it. And the reason why I say that is because social media is out, right? We're flipping through, that person's crazy. No. Listen, everybody's got something. And if you know you've got something, here's your job. Here's your responsibility. Your job is, let me figure out what's not perfect about my physiology and work really hard on it. And there are some things that can harm you that don't hurt you, right? In other words, I can have high blood pressure. Man, it is harming me, but it doesn't hurt yet, right? There are some things that can harm that don't hurt. You don't have a symptom from a vast majority of the things that occur to us. So here's what you have to do. You've got to go see somebody who went to medical school, paid a whole bunch of money, and just have him or her check you out real fast, right? You take your car in, take your body in, just go get checked out, hit the road. But only hire a physician that has a philosophy that you have. Don't go to a physician where when you leave the office, you feel denigrated and less than a man and and they talk down to you, because that still happens today. It happened yesterday. I mean, it's happening.
Yeah.
Go find a doctor that you can trust and have that conversation, because you're smart about where you want to go. If you think you want to spend all of the money that you've invested over time, listen, you can't do it if you're sick. Right? You said, like you said, you can't stop me from dying. If I could figure out how to stop folks from dying, I'd be richer. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk would have nothing on me, right? I'd already be in Mars, okay?
You and I would be sitting somewhere besides on my deck right now.
Whole cribs, Anyway, with that being said, you don't want to die tomorrow. You got to die of something, but can we have a little bit of time? So
yeah. Let me. I want to drill down on that a little bit further, because I think you bring up something very, very important. But and I think today, taking advantage of technology and information, to me, is just it seems obvious, and maybe that's because I'm on the other side of it. But one of the things that I think particularly millennials miss, and not just millennials, I'm not going to jump on millennials, all of us miss this, is the impact of genetics, because that's another thing you need to be focused on. Family history, and not only, but as we know, culturally, environmentally, obviously we're exposed to the same environment but there is also something to be said about understanding and knowing your family history. Talk a little bit about that, Dave.
Yeah, it's one of the things that we don't do a good job. I think, again, this is that messaging issue, that marketing issue. We don't do a good job in telling people how impactful that can be. Remember, you don't feel your genes necessarily. And too often what you find is that people will be able to come and report what's happened in their family. Oh, my aunt and my mother and then her two brothers, this all happened to them. Woe is them, right? Mm-hmm. But we don't think and make that next leap, which is our job. It's not people's job. It's our job to make the link. If that's happening in all those people in your family, there is likely to be something happening in that family, a gene that's occurring. If we, as purveyors of that information, don't push that information, how in the world do we expect for people to have that at their fingertips? I'm talking about really well-educated, super, smart, successful folks still don't really have that as facility as it should be, and therefore missing opportunities to prevent disease from taking over their lives. Like we said, you don't have to live your life in debility and morbidity. You can live a healthy life, but you've got to figure out what's wrong with your physiology, what's not perfect about your physiology, and work really, really hard to work on it, to improve it.
Yeah, and I think the other end of that spectrum, I'm going to just give a little shout out. There's my mother-in-law, Bessie Webb, and my aunt, Alma Brown, in there, Belinda Carter, homegirl, classmate. Hey, Julie Stebbins, one of my WellStar, cardiac rehab. Yeah, extraordinary.
Cardiac rehab in the house?
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Suzanne, hey, what's up? Long time. Good to see you. And, of course, the one and only, my cousin, Pam Brown, always checking in and doing her thing. But, yeah, I think the other end of it, I did a few years ago at my church. I used to do a little talk on during Heart Month in February on heart disease, and they would actually let me in the pulpit, believe it or not.
Preach.
But I did, or at least the theme was disposition, not destiny, because I think the other paradox and extreme of that thing, that family history thing, is you've seen many people. Oh, well, mama had it, so I'm gonna have it. Our daddy had this, and then they just fall into, and that becomes their crutch for not doing the right things. But I just wanted to interject that, because I think we can take those things to an extreme. So, Dave, we got this younger crowd that we're trying to reach. We can do that through marketing. Tell our audience and tell the guys out there, when do they? What's the trigger? When do they need to really start to, obviously we know it should be at a much younger age, beyond, your parents taking you in for your high school physical and sports exam and things like that. When do we really, and what are the triggers to say, okay, what is it? Family history? I got high blood pressure now. My cholesterol's high. at what point do we say, okay, look, I need to start taking this issue of heart health very, very seriously? I did a poll on LinkedIn a few weeks ago, in fact, and the reason why I asked you to come back, quite frankly, is because number one, I think 60% of the men who responded to the poll, that what are you worried about health wise? And it was heart disease, of course. It wasn't, stroke, cancer, or prostate cancer.
Well, that's interesting. That's a change, because it wasn't always
Yeah,
like that, right? Yeah.
Exactly. That's why I said I got to bring Dave back, because the poll showed that almost 70% of the men were concerned about heart disease. So at what point, what's our trigger to say, okay, we haven't been paying attention, we think we're invincible? What's that trigger that says, okay, now you've tipped yourself over into an abnormal risk profile, and we need to start really focusing in on this?
Yeah, so 2 points I want to make. One is, some of the efforts are showing up with that statistic you just gave, right? If 70% of men are saying, hey, heart is my number one concern, that means that some of the efforts of organizations like the American Heart Association, the American College of Cardiology, are working to at least bring awareness. Mm-hmm. But awareness is not enough.
Right.
It's not enough. You got to do something with it. So I think the second part is that we don't wait for a trigger. We are full-fledged on the attack, right? We don't take a defensive stance. And this is different than winning Super Bowls, winning championships. Defense might win those games, but offense is going to win the game of living a long, healthy life. What do I mean by offense? Actually, in your 20th year, you should just go hire a doctor. You're done with the pediatrician, go hire an adult doctor, and just say, I really want to make sure that you're looking broadly across my health. Take the blood. Take the EK. Do whatever you have to do in a preventive stance. You are making sure that when you leave that doctor's office, that you've got all of the recommendations that are age appropriate, including a full conversation with a physician. Because from that conversation, understanding what's happening in your family, to you, historically, is going to help him or her guide you through the right testing. And just go get tested. Much of the testing that we do is non-invasive. Nobody's doing all that stuff. Many of the guys, especially in our age range, Coop, we associate going to the doctor with the DRE, the digital rectal exam, which is a prostate exam. Like, you could be a dermatologist, and I'm not going because I'm thinking of the DRE. With that being said, it's not time for you to get a DRE if you're 20 years old, right? I mean, so I think if you just get the mindset that we have a lot of choices in 2021, and because I've got a lot of choices, I'm going to find that doctor that's fully preventive. They're all about prevention. And I'm going to find a doctor who has a philosophy that melds with mine about where I'm going with this. That's in the second decade. That's in the third decade, the fourth, and the fifth. I have specific recommendations around heart screening, particularly for those who have no symptoms, no family history after the fourth decade. I think that everybody, and this is not, and just this is an editorial, by the way, I'm a bit more aggressive than maybe the recommendations of the larger organizations say. Okay? And when I say more aggressive, I might test earlier and more extensively. And in my patient population, I don't have some of the same restraints that the general recommendations come from, like being able to afford, for example, the screen. With that being said, I think every individual in the United States should have a heart screen at least once by the age of 40. And if you haven't had one and you're over 40, go get one. Why?
Hey, did y'all hear that? Did y'all hear that? Everybody by the age of 40 should have a heart screening. I get that question all the time.
And when I say heart screen, I'm talking about not just an EKG. How many times we've seen an EKG and you're actually in a person's chest with a normal EKG?
Normal as it can be.
Yes,
yeah, absolutely.
So EKG is not even the beginning of what you should have. I think one should have a stress test. I think that many of us should undergo echocardiography, right? The ultrasound of the heart. I'm going to tell you that is not what the American College will recommend, that every 40-year-old gets an echocardiogram. But particularly in certain subgroups, particularly African Americans, people of color, who can have some of these abnormalities that you can pick up on an echocardiogram. I think you should have a stress test, an echocardiogram, and quite personally, something called a calcium score. What a calcium score really is just a plaque score. It's looking for a plaque that might be in the very early stages in your heart arteries that will, in 10, 20 years, cause a lot of problems for you if you don't see it now. It's about early detection.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Man, I love this, and I'm so glad I'm on with a preventive cardiologist, because most of my cardiology friends are on the other side of the spectrum.
Yeah, fixing it.
But they're over here with me. You know what I'm saying? Hey, we gonna fix that. Now we got some great fixes. But
Yeah,
let me
I
just tell
want
you
you to
something.
be there. Yeah.
Let me just tell you something. When you need that fix, let me tell you something. You are on the other side of the spectrum here.
Yes.
And so what Dr. Dave is all about, and I want y'all to hear this, is about preventing. And so you don't need to come and see him. Well, you do when you have a problem, clearly. And Dave knows I've sent him a lot of people who are already crossed that threshold. Now they got problems. But here's the good news. You can reverse that. We can push you back on the other side of this thing and get you back on a different trajectory.
Yeah.
As it relates to your heart health. They tell us some of the things that you do to do that. When somebody, as you know, some of the people I've sent you who they got problems, they listen to this show and they're like, hey, what was that guy's name? Yeah. Here he is. I shoot you the text. Tell us how you get them back over there.
Yeah, I mean, I always tell people, as long as you're alive, you can prevent something from happening, the next thing from happening, whether you've ever had it before, or you had one and you just don't want it to ever happen again. So we call that, Coop, primary and secondary prevention. At the end of the day, normal people don't talk like that. We're just all about prevention. If you are breathing and looking at me right now, you should be in the mode of preventing something from occurring, whether it's cancer or heart disease or whatever it is. I think prevention should be our main sort of approach to our health. With that being said, it's also clear that unless it's been proven, a lot of the things that we can find and uncover are remediable to the point of either resolution or a significant recovery, right? I will tell you that I get people to come to me for second opinions who their physicians, cardiologists, would say to them, hey, listen, your heart is weak is one of the main reasons. We call it heart failure. Your heart is weak. And we're gonna use these medicines, and right now I think you just you have to start getting your affairs in order. The prognosis is poor. And here's what I always look for in my diagnosis, right? I'm not just coming in, going TD Jakes you, right, with a motivational speech, which I do. I will.
You said that, Dave. I don't want TD Jakes folks coming after me.
No, I love TD Jakes. No. And this is I mean, TD Jakes heals folks, and this is not. That was not. And if that might have come off wrong.
No,
I'm talking about TD Jakes knows how to convince you to do some stuff. Okay, and so does right. So it's not just convincing you with words, right? If I use the right diagnostics to prove that your heart muscle, for example, is not dead, if the tissue is not dead. As a physiologist, I think that the tissue can perform again. Until proven otherwise, if the tissue is not dead, the tissue can perform again. So some people come to me with weak hearts. Some people may come with blockages in their arteries. I think if the tissue is not dead, then it's remediable, okay? And our approach to do that is very different than what might be pushed out, because largely in medical science and in medical practice, we don't have very much confidence that people will do some of the things that we want them to do that have to do with lifestyle. So what ends up happening is we fall back only on medication. And it feels like to the patient that all they want to do is give me medication. When the data suggests that people won't go out and start an exercise program, that people won't go out and change their diet significantly enough to really help their bodies heal. Our bodies are designed to heal themselves. We short circuit that. And because they haven't had enough of the TDJs, again, all positive, to convince them that you can do this and that we will walk through a way of doing it with diagnostics and therapy, right? Then we most of all tell people, hey, listen, this is it. And sure enough, if you believe that there is no recourse, you're just going to go right on down the rabbit hole. Okay? So my approach to people who already have disease is, unless it's proven that it's already gone, we can get some recovery. We can get something. The question is, how aggressively do you want to get this back? Right? How severely do you want your heart to perform again, your blood pressure to go down, your erectile function to be normal, right? All of these things that really matter. And that's just not the common philosophy, unfortunately, in the field in general, based on that.
Got it. Man, so, Dave, one of the things though is, and you and I have had this conversation before. I think we have, and I think what people need to understand, the flies are really loving the smell of that those veggies I got on the grill over there.
Yeah, I mean, I can smell it
yeah,
all the way over here.
yeah.
That asparagus, woo! Zucchini? Are you kidding me?
Dave, here's the issue though.
Yeah.
Here's the issue. I think, and you and I have had this conversation before, and we see it on social media. The person who goes from 300 pounds to 150 pounds in 2 days or whatever, and we call this quote a transformation. The idea, I think, in medicine, we have literally abdicated the responsibility for that kind of quote transformation to other industries. People who are quote health and life coaches or personal trainers or some quote latest greatest diet guru,
Yeah.
or whatever else. What you are saying, and you said this earlier, and I really want to focus in on, because you and I've had this conversation before, you need to be hiring a physician to help you in that journey.
Yeah. It's the goal is to try to find somebody with whom you can develop a long-term relationship.
Okay.
And the people who are listening to this know something about relationships, right? We've all had all kinds of relationships. The ones that last the longest and are the most fruitful, like we can do something together, are the ones where there is expressed mutual respect across the board, right? And there is, because of that respect, that the person is not necessarily, even if you have a misunderstanding, that person's not going to do something to harm you. That everything that's coming out of that relationship is for your highest good. Now, remember, this is hard for people to conceive right now. There was a time where a physician would write a prescription, and from that prescription, you get a little kickback. Well, guess what? You can't do that anymore. That's literally against the law.
You change his T-shirt to stripes, pinstripes.
There you go. You'll be like, "What happened to the Coops podcast?" I don't know. He's in jail.
It's an orange pinstripe.
He's right. What happened? He just started racking up. So there's literally a whole system of laws that prevents us from doing that. That's not clear to people. That there is not some cahoots between practicing physicians and industry, for example, which is a whole different conversation. We cannot save lives, as incidentally, without industry. So industry is not bad. We just have to sort of get some of the things that can be misconstrued and some of the maybe the negative parts to fix. With that being said, if I recommend a blood pressure medicine because your blood pressure is so high that I'm afraid you might have a stroke or heart failure, and you never take the medicine, what I get paid is exactly the same. We've got to get past this idea that somebody is in it for some secondary gain. Being a physician is emotionally, physically demanding. Nobody's just doing that because we don't have anything better to do. We do it because we love it. We do it because we want, most of all, to see you well. And once we convince people, just a message just like that. Look, I don't want you to have to take medicine. I just don't want you to die from what I'm treating you with medicine for. You get what I'm saying?
Got it.
So, yeah.
Got it. So I'm going to switch gears here. I want to say hello and give some shout outs. Holly Bellman, my classmate from Goizueta Business School. Thank you for checking in. And if you notice this conversation, Holly, we haven't spent a lot of time on, cholesterol, this, high blood. We're talking about how we can actually make a difference. This is about lifestyle. This is about commitment. This is about prevention. That's what we're talking about. But I am going to switch gears, and I want to thank all of you out there and online and YouTube, Facebook, and on my Dr. Cooper MD page. You're hanging with Dr. Cooper, and my guest once again, the one and only good Dr. Dave Montgomery, MD.com. Contributor to HLN, CNN, the Steve Harvey Show, a number of other outlets. Hey, Sister Queen, how you doing? Thank you for checking in this morning. You never give me a shout out on the chat, but thank you so much for doing it today. I know you're out there, though. I really appreciate it. We're talking about men's health and heart disease, but we're really not just talking about men. In fact, the interesting thing here is my entire chat today is women.
There you go.
The entire chat. Now I know some guys are out there,
which is huge, though, Coop.
Yes,
because sometimes we get, it's our wives that's dragging us into the, right. Listen, I say this. I tell all my guys who come in with their wives, hashtag wives save lives. Wives save lives. I see it all day long.
All day long.
Yeah, all day long,
my brother.
Thank you to the wives.
There you go. So I'm going to switch gears here in the last 15, 20 minutes we have. I want to talk about heart failure because there's something that's come up here in the last 2-3 years because we now have, quote, a drug and some treatment. Hey, Melanie, how you doing? I see you out there. Appreciate you. Mel Duncan, another one of my WellStar, former WellStar colleagues. Thank you for checking in. All my WellStar people, I love y'all. Y'all know that. Dr. Coop MD, that's the house that Coop built. Now, they probably gonna come after me for that saying that, but I said it anyway. This is the house that Coop built. I still love y'all. But check it out. Look, man, this whole heart failure thing, and in particular, amyloid cardiomyopathy, is something that is now getting a lot of attention, particularly in African American men. But as you pointed out in the pre-show. That is actually, a small percentage of us, a very specific group of us are specific protein and abnormality that now we have treatment for. So talk a little bit about, and so we're talking about an abnormal protein deposit called amyloid. I'll type it in the chat for those who maybe, but is this something that a man who comes in with heart failure initially should we be screening for this? Tell us what it is, and should we be screening? What do we do about this thing, Dave?
Yeah, it's something that is we've known about it for a very long time. I think what's clear now is that we've under-recognized how prevalent it might be. In other words, what's the incidence? How many people have it is still literally up for grabs because in the medical field, we haven't until more recently develop the diagnostic tools to say, okay, it's a high likelihood that you have what we call amyloid cardiomyopathy. And amyloid, in this particular case, just happens to be one of the proteins that everybody makes that helps your thyroid function normally. One of the proteins kind of goes rogue. It stops doing what it's supposed to do and goes to hang out. It plays hooky from school and kind of just goes to hang out. When it goes to hang out, they get together, they form these little aggregates, and the aggregates go and deposit into different organs, particularly in this particular case with a certain form of amyloid cardiomyopathy called ATTR. This thyroid hormone clusters together in these fibrils and wedges in between your normal heart cells and all the normal cells of your heart. Okay. And when they wedge into the normal heart cells, first of all, there's not enough room, so the heart starts to kind of get thick, right? It gets bigger to try to accommodate all these cells. And because these non-normal cells are in there, the heart doesn't function normally. Particularly, it gets very stiff, right? And so everybody knows that contraction is just as important as relaxation. And Coop knows very well that one might argue that relaxation is more important than contraction, since we spend 2/3 of our time in a cardiac cycle in relaxation and 1/3 of the time contracting. So if your heart doesn't relax normally, boy, you've got a problem. You can't pump stuff forward if you can't open the heart up to receive. And so what happens is people go into heart failure. There are a couple different forms of amyloid. But what we're finding is that some people are born with a gene defect that predisposes them to it. And then other people develop it later in life, 6th, 7th decade. Very few people develop it, much earlier. It is seen to be very common in people of West African descent, in the one particular form of this. And so you have this higher prevalence compared to the population in African Americans of West African descent of this kind of amyloidosis. Why is it a big deal? Because it kills people very quickly. So if you don't get it under control, if you don't get it diagnosed early detection, prevention, then you go into heart failure and it gets out of the gate, and can cause problems. So everybody's focused on this. And recently, there have been a couple therapies that are out there that will help these proteins from going rogue. Instead of them going off and depositing into your heart, it stabilizes these proteins so they can do more of what they do. And the data are pretty significant. How do you diagnose it? Well, you have to go see a physician. Step number one, right? And then step number two is to be talking about your symptoms so that there can be sort of this focus if they have to.
Now, Dave, one of the things that we talked about is the West African descent. And is there a specific treatment for that particular group? We know amyloid's been around, but is there a specific treatment out there now for that particular group from a medication perspective?
Yeah, so the newer therapies that have just been sort of released, and the makers of these therapies are now understanding how really important it is to get that marketing out. So you'll start to see some of these campaigns really trying to tell you, hey, for the first time in a really long time, we have some therapy for this form of amyloid. And the way that the medicine works is it tries to, instead of letting these little proteins flip off and go and lodge in your heart, it keeps them together, keeps them stabilized. And there are different therapies for two main therapies for that. So it is available. It is relatively brand new. And you want to be obviously going to get your heart screened. The way you get your heart screened, the first way that somebody can tell if you've got any amyloid is your EKG is abnormal. But some people might have amyloid with a normal EKG. We talked about EKGs not being the end-all be-all. In fact, they're just screens. But the echocardiogram is where many cardiologists get a sense of how likely it is you could have amyloid, which is why in my 40-year-old and up heart screen, right, preventive heart screen, nothing feels bad, I have in there an echocardiogram. You got to get an ultrasound.
Yeah. So, I want the audience to understand, because I get this, I've been doing this for a long time, Dave, as you know, but heart failure is sort of a constellation of things, and you shouldn't just accept that as I have strep pneumonia, I have a strep throat, and I can give you an antibiotic. It's not that.
Right.
And so I think the point I'm trying to make to the audience is, if somebody tells you you have heart failure, you need to go on a rampant search offense to figure out, why do I have that heart failure? Am I correct when I say that we got to go find out why? Because it is a diagnosis, but it's not like you can just accept. It's like a heart murmur. I tell people, heart murmur is not a diagnosis. It needs to be diagnosed.
Right.
You need to figure out why you have a heart murmur.
There, exactly. Yeah. Like you said, a heart murmur is a sound. What's the sound coming from, right?
Yeah.
So absolutely. I think the first thing is why one has heart failure. Remember, we're talking about amyloid, but it is not the commonest form of heart failure, particularly in people of color. The number one form of heart failure in people of color is hypertensive heart disease. Blood pressure's been high since you were 20 and you didn't know it because you didn't go to a doctor. Only way for you to know your blood pressure's high in many cases is go get your blood pressure checked. And if you let it keep going, or you even go and you don't do what the doctor says, you could have heart failure. That's what we're trying to prevent everybody from. We'll find out what the cause is. Most often, Coop, to your point, I can pretty much in a very short period of time tell you what caused your heart failure. Some of those groups of people who might have something like amyloid is a little bit harder. We've got to go a little bit further to try to diagnose the cause. With that being said, the mainstay of taking care of people with heart failure is the same across the board, right? And I'm going to start with this. Number one, change drastically what you put in your body in terms of food. Drastically. And folks know who have come to see me.
That's so hard, Dave. Man, I gotta eat my grilled vegetables. You telling me?
Yes, you do.
Come on, man.
Yes, you do.
All I did was drizzle a little bit of pork juice on there.
Just a little bit. That's fine. Yeah. No. Look, I'm with you, but you also going to the hospital in 3 weeks with your legs swollen. So hey, look. Like I said, I'm your advisor. You make the executive decision, okay?
Okay.
And there is a little bit of a trade-off. And while I'm making it seem draconian, it's not draconian. If I can get my patients to drastically change their diet everybody knows human psychology. If you don't build in something where people feel like they don't have to always use their willpower ever, I mean, from the time they wake up to the time they go to sleep, it's not going to work. That's not human nature. So the clever physicians are thinking about, how can I get an incremental improvement in this person's diet, because the food that you eat becomes who you are. You are what you eat. There's no debate about that. If we start there, get the sodium out, get all of the stuff that we think might be hindering your body from healing itself out, I'll let you have a cheat day, but you've got to earn it, right? Mm-hmm. And then the second thing is, I know it sounds trite to people, but at the end of the day, exercise and diet are the things that are going to save your life. My medicines are really important in many regards. My medicines are guardrails to keep you from flying off the interstate, right? But if you want to be in the right lane, you've got to control the lane that you're in. In order to control the right lane and the speed that you're going in that lane, that's you. What you're eating and your exercise. If we do it deliberately, I've actually seen, I've got people who come in, had an MRI. You know, we get these funny numbers on EFs for MRIs. Come in with a 13, 14% EF. Oh, get your affairs in order. Oh, we're going to put you in, right? And if you start with exercise and diet, I'm not saying don't use the medicines, because you still got to get the blood pressure down. You can't have them tachycardic, heart rate going 100 beats a minute. Yeah. You've got to do all those things. But the people who get on and get their heart muscle to come back, because it's not dead, are the people who change their diet and exercise their body. It's
Dr. Dave, the good Dr. Dave is on hanging with Dr. Cooper. Dr. Dave, what do you eat every day?
Yeah, well, so this morning,
give me your meal plan.
Well, so it's actually fun. So this morning in my little thing, because I came to the office to do this just for you, I've got some steel cut oats in here. Steel cut oats. Right. I usually start with oatmeal, steel cut oats, or regular rolled oats.
You putting sugar and butter in that? In those
I put stevia because I don't like the flavor of just plain, right? And so here's the butter part. I use plant sterols. So when I talk to my patients, I'm still a human being. Okay? Right. I still have the same proclivity for sweet, salt, and fat on my tongue as you do.
And you're from Chicago, by
the
way.
South side of Chicago. Okay?
South side of Chicago.
Mother was from Virginia, father was from Alabama. Look, I'm just like you. Look, I'm still a human being. But what I'm saying is,
what are you going to have for lunch, Dave? What are you going to have for lunch?
So it's usually a salad, right? I'll have a salad with salmon on it. These last 2 months, Coop, every year, May and June, up to Father's Day, so tomorrow.
Plant-based. This
is my plant-based. You already know. People who know me know.
60 days or 90 days?
So it's because it's from the beginning of May to Father's Day. So it's, 6 weeks, 6.5 weeks or something like that, 7 weeks.
Okay, and it's all plant and
all
fish?
Plants. No fish. All plants. Totally vegan. All plants, 100%. Okay?
Got it.
And this year, for the first time, full disclosure, I cheated. Okay?
Okay.
And I had some shrimp 2 weekends ago. 6 shrimp. Okay. I cheated this time.
Okay.
Okay. With that being said, this is my vegan period. So it's a salad. It's a salad with a bunch of stuff: carrots, radish, onions. All kinds of stuff.
Okay. Dinner.
So dinner is usually a whole grain, and I'm not a whole grain guy. So I'll get some pearl couscous, I'll get some wild rice, I'll get some brown rice, and I'll saute in safflower oil, olive oil, sunflower oil, the best oils, right? So
getting omega-3s and omega-6s.
Getting all that stuff. And you don't have to be worried about the oil. I'll saute mushrooms, broccoli, anything that I can saute with onions, shallots, and put that on a whole grain.
And from that, this on your website, the Dr. Dave diet plan or the Dr. Dave nutrition plan?
It is not. It is not on the website.
That on your website, man.
I want you to come to my office so I can take.
The men want to look like you, Dave. Not like.
Well, I'm not so sure they want to look like me. but I get what you're saying.
Yeah, the men want to look like you. Okay, let me ask you this now. Tell us about your exercise program.
Yeah. So after the pandemic, I used to go to LA Fitness 5:00 in the morning.
Okay.
4 days a week. When the pandemic hit, listen, I'm not going nowhere, Jack. And
you saw COVID.
and full disclosure, I started to gain weight. Remember what I said? After 40, I know firsthand.
Oh yeah.
That, and it goes right to the midsection. Listen, if we can figure that part out, Coop, we would be billionaire. Can we stop it at least
Yeah,
from going to
man.
the
Yeah,
midsection?
man.
Can it go to the
Oh,
knees? Okay. Anyway, so I started to gain weight, and I was the heaviest I'd ever been. And so when patients
Really?
tell me, "Hey, I'm the heaviest I've ever been," I don't poo-poo that. I'm
that's
like,
serious.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Right.
And so what I did was I asked around friends, and Rod Woodson. Rod Woodson gave me a recommendation of a trainer,
Yeah.
personal trainer, where I could be the only guy in the gym because I'm not trying to huff and puff with somebody else with
Right.
the COVID-19. He only had one spot left because he trains athletes, professional athletes, all this stuff.
Yeah.
He says, "Dave, all I got is a 4:45 Tuesday and Thursday and 6:15 on Saturday." And I said, I'm there. So I started that a year ago. And that's what I've been doing 3 days a week. And then on a fourth day, very, very early, I'll spend 30 minutes at LA Fitness before anybody comes in. And that's been my process. He puts me through a cross-training, series of things. So we literally train all of the major muscle groups 3 days a week. We focus on one of them more than others. So, for example, today we focused on the upper chest. But I did everything. My legs were involved, my core was involved, my arms were involved. We do a little bit of everything because it's so infrequent. So 3 days a week. And then on that fourth day, I don't do very much cardio because in that cross training is cardio. I don't do very much cardio. I focus on some things that a 47-year-old wants to focus on, try to not look like, I'm getting 47. So, I'll do that for 30 minutes and then hit the road.
Dave, we need to see that, man. You should do a show. You should take the camera in there, and show us how to do that. I'm gonna just be honest with you. I'm the heaviest I've ever been, and I'm telling you, next weekend we're gonna address this issue though because it becomes real. But it gets back to some of the things you talked about, is the physical limitations, man. I used to run 15, 20 miles a week. Knee problem 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Now hip, back problem. I've been out here beating on my back all weekend with this massaging thing, trying to get this, and it really limits us. So next weekend on Hang with Dr. Cooper, just to kind of get you into that. First thing we're going to talk about on Saturday with my good friend and oral and maxillofacial surgeon, Dr. Bernie Dunson, we're going to talk about getting that mouth right because we know the mouth is our dirtiest part of our bodies. I don't care what you say. That mouth, you got to get that mouth right, and everything else is going to be completely.
And there's an interplay with heart disease, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, and hold on. I read something the other day that people with poor, and this may just be an association, not a direct result thereof, but bad. And we were talking about this erectile dysfunction with Walter Faulkner a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
Bad oral hygiene and erectile dysfunction.
Oh,
so ladies, if their breath
it's vascular.
is bad.
It's vascular.
If their breath is bad, they're in trouble.
Right, that's your sign.
But anyway, and then, but on Sunday, I got my buddy, our good friend Arthur Raines coming on, and Art Raines is going to talk about some orthopedic and musculoskeletal issues, and really, kind of figure out some ways to kind of modify around that because we got the good Dr. Dave on here, and he's got the program for you. I want y'all to reach out to Dave, DaveMontgomeryMD.com. DaveMontgomeryMD.com he's got just a whole wealth treasure trove of information. And what I really like is he's got real people on there who are telling their story about their transformation and how they went through the process. And his clinic is preventatl.com. Did I get it right, Dave?
Preventatl.com. That's
and he's all about preventing you from having to come and see me, okay? Yeah. Or to go see one of our friendly, go see Dr. Volts for a stent or whatever else. So, Dave, anything else, man? We're going to wrap up here. It's Father's Day weekend. It is Juneteenth. We finally we have another milestone in this struggle we have in this country for racial reconciliation. And today is Juneteenth, a national holiday now, and tomorrow's Father's Day. Any parting shots, Dr. Dave?
Yeah, I think what I did write down a few things. You know how we'll parlay the conversation. There were a couple points I wanted to get because I know that you were going to have a large number of those wives and women who have significant others. And I want to emphasize this: wives save lives, and you can put in the wives, whatever you are, girlfriend, significant, because it is going to be you in many cases that will bring a man to know that he's got something that might change the course of his life. In other words, you're going to get him to the doctor. But I do think that there is a way to do it so that the feeling that you turn into the mother goes away. because that's going to harken back to some of those experiences that we talked about at the beginning of the show. If you're just tuning in, go back to the beginning where we talk
Yes.
about why I think some of the aversion to going to doctors is at least started. Not the whole thing, but part of it for men. So if you would have a benign dialogue with the man in your life, the men that you love, about their experiences with healthcare. I had one with a friend, and it turns out he's an anti-COVID vaccine. And it turns out, as he was talking about this, that he's anti going to the doctor, period. And I'm like, bro, like, what are you talking about? What's happening? Right? In a non-judgmental way, because I could have just shut that thing down, like, oh, I can't believe. Or you could say,
it's easy to do,
right?
But that's not constructive.
Well, you know what happened? We just, kind of, shooting the breeze. And he talks about how his last interaction was inside of a hospital. He was very ill, felt very ill, and he felt, under communicated to, talked down to, like all of this stuff. He felt like he was being thrown through the ringer and just kind of doing studies because they wanted to make money. Coop, when he described the condition to me, I'm like, I can see how they did that test and wanted to figure it out. His conclusion was a very negative conclusion. Guess what? He ain't going back. Excuse my colloquialism. He is not going back to a physician until he figures out that somebody's not going to try to harm him and take his money. So open the dialogue so you can understand why it's happening. Number 2, do not belittle the man when something's going on. The condescension, denigrating talk about it, disparaging arguments, especially, you're going out and the world is opening back up and then you're in with your friends and their wives. And then she says something negative about you and your health. Well, you might as well forget about it. You are going to set that guy up to never want to address it with you again. Don't belittle the conversation. Don't have condescending conversations with your man. And do not play the one-up game. When you finally get him in there and the doctor says, oh my God, I can't believe this. You have high blood pressure. Don't get back in that car and say, I told you.
I told you so. Yeah.
Okay? Because he may not say anything right now, but men's egos... I'm going to stop right there. Okay. You know what I'm talking about.
I get it. Yeah.
Okay. And then here's another piece. If you go with him, ask him if he would like for you to go. Don't impose yourself on the conversation. And if you do go, be gracious and say, at a certain point, I'm just going to step out. Would you like for me to step out? He will tell you, no, I want you to stay. Because some men don't want you to go anywhere. I want my wife right here because... Right? Other men are not going to say to you for a number of reasons. Hey, can you, find a really gracious way at the exam, for example. Hey, I'm going to step out. Give him the opportunity now to not feel like his parent is sitting with him because it's going to harken back to some experiences, perhaps, that he doesn't like. You want a relationship to develop with he and his provider, not necessarily with you and the provider. Okay? So those are the points I want to share with the women. And
excellent, man. Dave, thank you once again. The good Dr. Dave, preventatl.com. If you you want to hire him as your preventive health partner, particularly as it relates to heart disease. But I can tell you everything that he's doing is going to prevent you from getting having a problem with a whole lot of other things.
Yeah.
And so we got preventatl.com, DaveMontgomeryMD.com. And the good Dr. Dave, he is on. Is it every weekday with HLM with Robin Meade, or is it every weekday? Or
yeah, no, it had been for a long time, and so we're sort of in a recess. I'm kind of doing some. I'll tell you what's coming up soon. And I'm kind of doing a project right now. I haven't been on for probably the last month and a half or so. But yeah, no, it's a frequent thing. Yeah.
Got it. And you also catch him from time to time on CNN and other national outlets speaking a lot recently on COVID and as it relates to the heart. We didn't get into that today. We've got more information that we can probably tolerate on COVID right now. But look, Dave, I want to thank you again. I want to thank everybody out there in the audience. Those of you I didn't get to recognize, Eric Boyd, I appreciate you, my brother, from Kansas City down in Texas now. And my Aunt Faye McIntosh. I ain't gonna talk about you right now. I'll talk about you later. Faith Jones, homegirl, how you doing? Thank you for checking in, Sister Queen. Once again, Andrea Terhune, college classmate. How you doing? Good to see you, Patrice PBG, Patrice Brown Greer. I had to make sure I get all my shout outs out there. Beth Davis, hey, how you doing? Coming in at the end, I see you. Thank you so much. We appreciate you, Dave. Once again, thank you, my brother. Hey, man, I just want to thank you. I appreciate you. I love you, man. You're outstanding physician, but an even better man. And look forward. We'll get you back in the fall, man. Let's take a summer break, and we'll bring back in the fall and certainly get everybody on track so they can go into the holidays on the right track.
Yes.
And come out and not get all stirred up in February when it comes back around the Heart Month again.
There you go.
I thank you so much for
love you, brother. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers. Happy Father's Day to you,
man. All right, and we'll see you. Thank you. All right.